All right, so today we're going to talk about 3D shapes. All right, three-dimensional shapes. They're called three dimensions because they have three dimensions: a length, a width, and a height, or something of that in general. So that's what we call 3D. So far, all we've done is 2D, two-dimensional, like it has a base and a height. Today, we're going to deal with things that have a base, a height, and a width, or a length, depending on which words and which way you want to look at things. So, um, yeah, that's kind of what's going on with that. So let's go ahead and get started with one shape here. We're going to look at overall. There's four shapes. We're going to look at two today. So the first one is what we call a rectangular prism. We're going to look at prisms and pyramids. Okay, prisms are a type of shape that have two bases and have rectangles. Nothing but rectangle. Other than that, two bases that could be any shape, and then a bunch of rectangles that connect them. I like to think of it as you're kind of like taking a shape and then like stretching it out, and that's what a prism is. Now, if you have a box around you, any kind of box, well, kind of like a normal squarish or rectangular looking box, go ahead and grab that. That's going to help you out for today, just so you have like an actual representation of the shape. Because I'm going to draw it, but anything. So I have like a box of snacks here, right? That I'm going to use. That's my reference point. You can use a Kleenex box. You could use anything that's kind of like a regular box that you Amazon shipping and that sort of stuff would work. Okay, it's the most common kind of boxes is what we're going to look at. All right, so I'm going to show you how to draw these shapes, and drawing these shapes takes a little bit of skill, a little bit of practice, but we'll hopefully get to it. So follow along with me if you want to learn how to draw a 3D shape, just like this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do for rectangular prism is I'm going to start with a rectangle. All right, start with a rectangle. Go ahead and draw that rectangle. Doesn't matter how skinny you draw it or fat you draw it. Okay, what's most important is this next part. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to draw another rectangle. It's going to be the kind of basically the exact copy of this rectangle. Okay, it's as if you press copy, Control C, then Control V. But the difference is we're going to put some dotted lines. The reason why I put dotted lines is because then those are the lines that we technically couldn't be able to see, but we know that they're there, right? Like if you look at a box, you can't see all the sides, but you know it's there. All right, so in this rectangle prism, this is what we're going to do. We're going to draw a rectangle. Now we're going to draw another rectangle that's a little bit to the right and a little bit up, a little bit up, a little bit to the right. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to draw this one a dotted line. It should be the same length as this line here on the left line, okay? And you want it to be the same distance, right? You want this distance to be the same as this distance right here, okay? We'll come back and we'll draw those lines in a second. All right, so I'll erase those for now just to not confuse us. Oops. All right, and then the next line you want to do, you want to draw again, you're going to try and draw that rectangle. So I'm going to draw this top line right here, and I'm going to do the opposite to the bottom line. This one will be dotted as well, and then I connect it. So you see what I did there? I just made the same rectangle but twice. Now the back one's a little bit skinny, but that's okay. So just two rectangles. The closer they are to the same shape, the better it'll look. And then we just connect the dots. We connect the corners. We say, all right, there's a corner, corner to corner, corner to corner, and corner to corner. Oh, those should be dotted. And there you go. You just made a 3D rectangular prism. Pretty good. Now, that's not the only way you could draw it. You could draw these angled sides. What's most important is like these angled sides are the same, basically as if you had the same exact type of line and you did it 4 times, that same angle. If those angles are off, that's where you get kind of weird shapes there. Now, if yours doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. All right, so we're going to go into some vocabulary right now. All right, so here's the vocabulary. The first vocabulary word is faces, face or faces. Okay. Or another way to put it is these are the sides. Okay. These are the sides of the shape. So if you're looking at your box, right, how many sides does it have? A good example of this is like a number dice, right? A number cube, right? If you were playing a game and you had dice, right? How many sides does each cube have, right? It's got one on top, one on the bottom. So it's got something on top here. It's got one on the bottom. And then it's got 4 going all the way around, right? Remember, on a dice, there's just 1 through 6. So how many faces do we have? We have 6 faces. 6 faces or 6 sides. Now that leads us to another word, which is called the bases. How many bases does this shape have? Well, the bases I like to call kind of like the top and the bottom, if they have it. So in this case, we have 2, right? The parts that I highlighted in blue that are colored in, those are the bases. Now the base of the shape, okay, is basically what tells you what kind of shape it is. So if you had if you had 2 triangles instead of those squares there, it'd be a triangular prism. If you had 2 hexagons, it'd be a hexagonal prism. And what makes a prism is that if you were to flip this over, it'd be the same exact shape. You wouldn't be able to tell which is the top and the bottom. The top would become the bottom, bottom would become the top. When we deal with pyramids in just a few minutes, you'll see that they're not always the same. All right, next, edges. The edges, or they're kind of like on a picture, they're basically the lines. Okay. So how many lines, how many edges do they have? Basically, an edge is where a face and another face meet together. And if you have a box in front of you, right, the part that's not super sharp, but it's kind of like where the 2 faces meet, those are called the edges. So let's count them. Let's count all the edges together. I'll do it in a different color here. So let's start with the top. I've got 1. I've got 2. I've got 3. And I've got 4. So I've got 4 edges on top. On the bottom, I've got 1. I've got 2. And I've got this dotted one, which is 3. And this other dotted one, which is 4. So I'm at 8 so far. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, 5, 6, 7, 8 total so far. And then I've got all these other ones that connect. So I'm at 8, then I've got 9, 10, 11, and the one in the back, 12. So how many edges does my shape have? I've got 12. Another way to think of it, again, how many lines did I draw in order to make the shape? Well, my initial rectangle was 4. My second rectangle was 4 again, and then I had 4 more connectors. So 4, 4, 4, 12 edges. 12 edges. All right, and then the last vocabulary word is vertices. Plural of vertex. And these I like to just kind of call the corners. Then a vertice is where the edges meet, right? They make the pointy part. So on your box, the part that's pointy are your vertices. So how many of those do we have? Well, let's count. Okay, let's count how many vertices we have. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I have 8 total vertices. Okay. So those are the vocabulary words. We got faces, bases, edges, and vertices. Or in another way to put them, how many sides does it have? Does it have a top and a bottom, or just a bottom? How many edges does it have? Right? How many lines do we use to make it? And then how many corners? When we put all the lines together, they make a corner, and so how many corners do we have? Right? So this is what you're going to have to do on your IXL today is look at it and say, okay, how many faces does it have? How many vertices? How many edges? So you need to know what those words mean and what they are. Not too bad? Yeah, not too bad, right? We're gonna do another shape here. We'll do another shape to kind of see what we're doing. A different shape just to give us some more perspective here. Okay. All right. The next shape, another rectangle base, is going to be a rectangular pyramid. Rectangular pyramid. All right, and I'm going to show you how to draw that one as well. This one's, I think, really cool. I think the way the pyramids come out really cool because they kind of, again, being able to draw that 3D it's hard, but if you're able to kind of figure it out, then it's pretty good. All right. In order to draw a rectangular pyramid, you have to start with not a rectangle, but a slanty rectangle or a parallelogram. So we're going to draw a parallelogram to start. All right. So I'm going to start with this. This is going to be a dotted slanted line. And then that, I'm going to have a solid line here. And then another dotted line that goes further. And then a solid line here. Okay. So you see, basically, it's like a rectangle that's like slanted over. The key is if you make those two slanted lines the same, that's what we want. If the two slanted lines are the same and they're parallel, which means they're basically the same kind of line, just in different places, then you'll get a pretty good shape there. So don't just draw a square. Don't just draw a regular rectangle. It'll look funny. Yeah, it'll look funny. Okay. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to put a dot, just a single dot right above your shape, a little bit to the left. I tried not to put it right above the corner. You'll see why in a second. I'll try to take it nice and slow so you guys can get the idea. And then the last step is simply connect the corners to the dot. Just like that. Pretty cool, right? Now, if you want to make it a little more upright, what you do is you make the parallelogram a little skinnier. I can kind of show you what that would look like. So if I had more of an angle for my parallelogram, so it's a little bit more angled. This one didn't look that good. Sorry, let me try again. And then you can make it look a little bit flatter. All right. So either way, just practicing. It takes some practice. Again, everyone that I do is definitely not perfect. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about the faces, the edges, and the bases. And I want you guys to be able to help me out with this one. So these are the same shape. So either one you want to look at. How many faces do we have? How many faces does the shape have? And go ahead and put it in the chat. How many faces? Mm-hmm. Good. Anyone else? Yeah, we're going to have a total of five faces, right? You got the rectangle on the bottom, and then you have 4 triangles going up. So if you're having trouble seeing that, so you got the base, which I'll put here in blue, okay? That's our base. And then we've got one side here, right? And then we got the one in the back, and then we got the one that's in front, and the one over to the right. So you can kind of see the different shades we have going on here. The different sides we have. Sometimes it's hard to see. Okay, so we got 5 faces. Yeah, everyone see that we have 5, right? 1 rectangle on the bottom, and then 4 triangles. So it makes a total of 5 faces. All right, how many bases do we have? Yeah, this is interesting. So the difference between a pyramid and a prism, one of the main differences is a pyramid only has 1 base. Okay, just that rectangle on them. Basically, what does it sit on? If I was to flip it over, it'd have to rest on that point, which doesn't work out so well. So it's only got 1 base. 1 base. All right, edges. How many edges do we have? How many edges do we have? Count the lines. Count all the lines, and you'll see what we got. All right, let's count them. On the base itself, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then how many lines going up to the top? From each corner, I've got 1, so 5, 6, 7, and 8. So a total of 8 edges. And lastly, how many vertices do I have? How many corners do I have? Yeah, let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they all converge here at the top. So we have 5. 5 total vertices. All right, so that's what we're doing today. We're just looking at these shapes, and we should be able to say, okay, how many faces do they have? How many bases? How many edges? And how many vertices? It takes a little bit of counting. Sometimes people have to kind of like look at it, and sometimes the shape looks different if it's like flipped over. But for these pyramids, okay, a lot of them are very much the same. Rectangular pyramid. Again, if the base was a triangle, it'd be a triangular pyramid. If it was a hexagon, it'd be a hexagonal pyramid. Okay, so we've got pyramids. And we have prisms. So you can kind of see the difference between the two, right? Pyramid meets at a point. Prism looks the same whether you flip it over top or bottom, right? And again, the faces, the sides, the bases, the top and the bottom, the edges, which are the lines, and the vertices, the corners. That's what you need to be able to find. Okay?